$100,000 a year. For most of history, that number meant you had made it. You were in the top few percent. You were comfortable. You were, by any reasonable definition, doing well. And yet right now, millions of people earning exactly that amount are living paycheck to paycheck, skipping vacations, stressed about rent, wondering where the money goes. This isn't a spending problem. It isn't a discipline problem. And it is definitely not a you problem. It's a math problem. And once you see the numbers, you can't unsee them. Let's start with the most important number nobody talks about. You don't take home $100,000. Not even close. Before a single dollar hits your account, the federal government takes 22% of everything above $44,725. Add in Social Security and Medicare, another 7.65% on the full amount. Then your state. Depending on where you live, that's anywhere from 0 in Texas or Florida to 13.3% in California. Let's use a middle ground state. Say you're in Illinois. State tax, 4.95%. Run the math. After federal income tax, FICA, and state tax, your $100,000 becomes roughly $67,000. You haven't spent a single dollar yet, and you've already lost $33,000. Now housing. The median rent for a one-bedroom apartment in the United States in 2025 is $1,700 per month. But if you live in any major metropolitan area, New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Miami, Seattle, Austin, you're looking at $2,200 to $3,500 per month for one bedroom by yourself. Financial advisors say housing should be no more than 30% of your gross income. 30% of $100,000 is $2,500 a month. That sounds fine, until you realize that $2,500 isn't 30% of what you actually take home. It's closer to 45% of your real monthly take-home pay. That one number, housing, already breaks the standard financial planning model. Before food, before transportation, before anything else. Let's keep going. Groceries for one person, $400 to $600 a month. And that number is up 25% since 2020, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. A car payment on a new vehicle averaged $735 a month in 2025, the highest it has ever been. Car insurance, $150 to $250 a month, depending on your state and driving record. Health insurance, if your employer doesn't fully cover it, $400 to $600 a month for an individual plan. And that's before you actually use it. Phone, internet, subscriptions you actually use, utilities, that's another $300 to $400. We're not talking about restaurants or vacations or anything optional. Add it up. Rent, $2,200. Groceries, $500. Car payment, $735. Insurance and gas, $400. Health, $500. Utilities and phone, $350. That's $4,685 a month in fixed, non-negotiable costs. Your take-home on $100,000 after taxes is approximately $5,580 a month. That leaves you $895 for everything else. Student loans, retirement savings, clothes, a dentist appointment, an emergency, a flight home for the holidays. $895. And this is the math for someone with no debt, no dependents, and no particularly bad luck. If you have student loans, and 43 million Americans do, with an average payment of $503 a month, you're now left with $392. This isn't poor financial planning. This is the structural reality of earning $100,000 in 2025. And here's where it gets worse, because the problem isn't just that costs are high. It's that the costs that matter most have grown at a rate that has nothing to do with your salary. In 1990, the median home price in the United States was $122,000. Adjusted for inflation, that would be roughly $285,000 today. The actual median home price in 2025? $420,000. That's not inflation. That's a structural shift in what it costs to own a place to live. The same thing happened with college tuition, healthcare, and childcare. These are not luxuries. They are the basic infrastructure of a middle-class life. And they've risen at 2 to 4 times the general inflation rate for the last 30 years. Meanwhile, wages, even good wages, have largely tracked general inflation. The result is a gap. A widening, compounding gap between what it costs to live the life that $100,000 was supposed to represent and what $100,000 actually buys you now. Economists call this the cost of living divergence. Others call it the middle class squeeze. But whatever you call it, the lived experience is the same. You earn more than most people, and it still doesn't feel like enough. There's also something called lifestyle inflation, and it's real and it matters. But it's often used as a way to blame the earner instead of examining the system. Yes, people with higher incomes often spend more, but when researchers at the Economic Policy Institute studied spending patterns, they found that the majority of increased spending by higher earners went to the same categories: housing in better school districts, healthcare, and childcare. Not champagne, not luxury goods. The basics. Just the more expensive version that a $100,000 salary is supposed to make accessible. So what's actually going on? The short answer is this: income and wealth are not the same thing. Robert Kiyosaki spent decades making this point. Your income is what comes in every month. Your wealth is what you own. And in 2025, the gap between people who own assets and people who sell their time has never been wider. The S&P 500 has returned an average of 10.5% per year over the last 30 years. The median wage has grown at approximately 3 to 4% per year over the same period. That means every dollar you have invested in the market, passively, doing nothing, has been growing at roughly 3 times the rate of your salary. The people who feel wealthy at $100,000 aren't the ones who earn more. They're the ones who started converting income into assets earlier. This is the key insight that most financial content misses. The goal isn't to earn enough to feel comfortable. The goal is to build enough assets that the discomfort of trading time for money becomes optional. But here's the part that's worth sitting with. That shift, from selling time to owning assets, requires something that feels almost impossible when you're already spending 83% of your take-home on fixed costs. It requires margin, even a small margin. Even $200 a month consistently invested at the S&P's historical average becomes $380,000 in 30 years. $500 a month becomes $950,000. The math is not the problem. The margin is the problem. And the margin problem is what the $100,000 illusion is really about. Because the system was designed, housing costs, tax structures, student loan models, in an era when $100,000 provided real margin. It no longer does, not automatically. And pretending it does, blaming individuals for not saving enough, spending too much, not budgeting correctly, is how the structural problem stays invisible. So, what do you actually do with this information? 3 things. First, stop measuring your financial health by your salary. Start measuring it by your savings rate, the percentage of your income that becomes an asset, not an expense. Even 5% is a start. Even $250 a month. The number matters less than the habit. Second, understand where your money is going at a structural level, not a moral one. If you're spending 45% of your take-home on housing, that's not a character flaw. That's a market condition. The solution isn't guilt, it's strategy. That might mean a different city, a roommate, house hacking, renting out a room or a unit while you live in the property. Geographic arbitrage, earning in dollars and living somewhere cheaper. Third, start treating the gap between your income and your expenses as the most important number in your financial life. Not your gross salary, not your tax bracket, the gap. Because the gap is what becomes wealth. And in 2025, building that gap on a $100,000 salary requires intentionality that previous generations simply didn't need. The 6-figure milestone is real. Earning $100,000 puts you in the top 18% of American earners. That is not nothing. That is something. But it is not what it used to be. And understanding why, understanding the structural forces that have made it feel smaller, is the first step to building something that actually grows. Because the people who figure this out aren't the ones who earn more. They're the ones who stopped waiting for their salary to be enough and started building something their salary funds. If this changed how you think about the number, subscribe. The next video goes deeper into exactly how to start building the gap, even when it feels like there's nothing left.